Tales in the Scottish Highlands tell of a deceptive beauty that, like a succubus, preys upon lustful men. The Baobhan Sith, or fairy witch, drinks the blood of man, often appearing before hunters in the woods when they yearn for female companionship. They shapeshift to match their victim's preferred beauty, but veiled behind their long skirts are the hooves of a deer. Those aware of them can fight back, taking advantage of their weakness to iron and sunlight. Failing to notice a Baobhan Sith, however, leaves hunters vulnerable to their own libido. Instead of gratification, they are met with crimson carnage. In that regard, the Baobhan Sith is akin to a thirsty vampire, one best avoided at all cost. Still, legends are just that, stories that derive power from human belief. They are not to be underestimated, but at the same time are not always accurate. Fairies like the Baobhan Sith can appear under different circumstances, not limited by the folklore they derive from. Fairy Britain, for instance, lingers in a world once designated for annihilation. Primordial fairies take shelter on the giant god Cernunnos, using its body to avoid drowning in the sea. Rather than show gratitude, they abuse the god's gift, choosing to slaughter it while yearning for an even larger landmass. Various tribes descending from these fairies wage war on each other, leading the planet itself to call forth Ash the Savior, a fairy from Avalon tasked with restoring order to the land and repenting for misdeeds of the past. Despite much sacrifice, Ash ultimately finds Britain's fairies irredeemable, their only value coming through servitude. Thus, calling herself Queen Morgan Le Fay, she joins the fray, subjugating all the land's tribes through battle. She establishes a kingdom where all fairies must offer their life energy to fill her vast reserve. Knowing Cernunnos still sleeps beneath the surface, she gathers the means to keep it at bay, protecting the land over any of its vile inhabitants. To maintain control of her kingdom, Morgan bolsters her forces with an elite court of trusted fairies called the Tamlin, or Fairy Knights. Each one is recruited directly and imbued with the Saint Graph of a Knight of the Round Table from proper human history. To that end, Morgan occasionally travels Britain in search of new knight candidates. In the city of Darlington, a fairy named Baobhan Sith barely scrapes by as a prostitute. Despite inheriting the vampirism from her legends, she is kind, doing her best to suppress her blood-sucking arcana in favor of helping people. Perhaps if the fairies around her were as caring, Baobhan Sith could have met a different fate. Instead, her compassion is betrayed by the ungrateful masses who attack and abuse her. Grimalkin, Lord of Darlington, finds her ability amusing and forces her to use it against her will. Allowing corruption to spread, Grimalkin makes her his pawn in turning Darlington into a necropolis, littered with torment and death. This servitude doesn't come with any protection, as Baobhan Sith becomes a victim like everyone else. Among the carnage, her limbs are torn from her body, and she is left to die. Any potential to revive herself has expired. It is in this moment of desperation that Morgan visits Darlington and finds Baobhan Sith's bleeding torso. Reminded of her own mistreatment, she chooses to adopt Baobhan Sith as her child. Deeming that the poor girl has gone through enough torment, Morgan raises Baobhan Sith to forego her kind nature and replace it with sadism. However, this philosophy harms her. Grateful, she wishes to please her mother, but only receives praise when resorting to cruelty. Desperate to keep her mother's love, she casts away her sanity, letting her fear give way to malice. Fittingly, she is trained in her mother's witchcraft and hailed as Fairy Britain's successor. Alongside her magecraft, Baobhan Sith is declared Fairy Knight Tristan and bestowed with the appropriate Saint Graph from proper human history. Elevated to an archer-class heroic spirit, her power comes in the form of a gesh, or agreement. It is contingent upon her loyal servitude, such that if she ever turns on her fellow knights, her life will be forfeit. Fundamentally, Baobhan Sith is the same young girl she always was. It's just that, tragically, her sense of fun and empowerment comes from tormenting the weak and disadvantaged. She commits atrocities for enjoyment, encouraged by Morgan's approval and protection. Morgan's subjects cannot fathom this behavior, criticizing the Queen's choice of heir. In turn, Baobhan Sith only retaliates more, beheading her opposition and making subordinates her personal playthings. This includes forcing Camelot's Minister of Justice to jump off a cliff for her spectacle. Yet, no matter how despised, Morgan supports her. Over the span of 100 years, Baobhan Sith executes an incredible 400,000 fairies by herself. Her wicked reign only grows worse with the arrival of Morgan's master and interim husband, Beryl Gut. Also raised by a witch, Beryl comes to Fairy Britain with his own love of murder. He brings with him new spells to teach Baobhan Sith, alongside a bountiful knowledge of proper human history and its culture. Baobhan Sith, whose only hobbies are torture and vandalism, quickly becomes obsessed with human civilization. Reading piques her interest, and she develops an association with Orkney's library witch. Her sense of aesthetics also changes, incorporating beautiful rose patterns and feminine scarlet hues. More than anything, however, Baobhan Sith comes to adore shoes, especially high heels. She collects them emphatically, eventually dreaming to craft her own stylish footwear. Magecraft may be in decline for proper human history, but Baobhan Sith thinks the fashion of shoes far more magical. For as productive as this hobby is, it still isn't enough to curb her sadism. Her collection of shoes is accompanied by a collection of feet severed from Morgan's citizens. She enshrines these feet in her bedroom like treasures. While she is a princess of Camelot, Baobhan Sith's role as a knight has her taking to the battlefield on occasion. In that capacity, she wields her own petite version of Failnaught, Tristan's harpstring bow. It is said to always hit its target, but as an added measure, she can also stab foes with the spikes on her heels. Bladed shoes help her bathe in the blood of her enemies as she pirouettes among them. She utilizes her talent as a witch through various spells, including magic bullets and invisible strings that suspend victims midair. Separate from the Grimalkin of Darlington, Baobhan Sith commands a skill with the same name that channels the stealth of cats. English witches often rely on felines who are known for their silent footsteps and aloof speed. Baobhan Sith inherits these same traits. Because she tends to live her life from moment to moment, she naively follows Beryl Gut's teachings without considering the side effects. From him, she learns the Scottish spell Fetch, which creates doppelgangers. She finds it so useful that she incorporates it into her noble phantasm, Fetch Failnaught, a death curse through which she creates a double of her victim and kills them vicariously through that helpless double. Beryl Gut deliberately withholds the fact that Fetch also harms its user, rotting away their soul in the process. The indulgent fairy continues to abuse her new power, slowly degrading herself. These abilities are impressive in a vacuum, but prove inferior against a more battle-hardened opponent. When facing off against the fairy Artoria Pendragon, she harnesses her strong divine patterns, only to lose from a lack of experience. Most of her practice is done in the safety of Morgan's castle, so she stands no chance against a fairy who's used spells on a daily basis for survival. With Fetch corrupting her soul, her abilities wane even further. Another of the kingdom's subjects, Spriggan, mounts a rebellion against Morgan Le Fay. Unable to win a direct confrontation, Spriggan instead takes Baobhan Sith captive after once again tearing off her limbs. By using Morgan's own daughter as a hostage, he takes her off guard and allows the angry masses to overwhelm her. The queen is brutally beaten to death by the fairies she once saved. Baobhan Sith is hated even more so, as the rebellion tosses her from Camelot's walls down into the great pit where Cernunnos sleeps. In freefall, she prays to the slumbering god, pleading for it to awaken once more. Unaware that Morgan has been using her might to keep the beast at bay, her killers have accelerated their own doom. In the end, the ones to defeat Cernunnos are Ritsuka Fujimaru and the Chaldea Security Organization. While they successfully dismantle the British Lostbelt, their encounters with its fairies influence who they can summon as heroic spirits. Baobhan Sith is among the new roster, given a second chance at life. Unlike the twisted fairies who abused her, Ritsuka is a trustworthy master who deeply cares for humanity and its survival. Under their command, even the wicked Baobhan Sith can redeem herself for a better purpose. During one of Chaldea's summertime fiascos, she discovers Cernunnos cowering in the woods of Luluhawa. To aid the ailing god, Baobhan Sith takes on its authority, becoming the deity's priestess and spokesperson. Now named Ket Kook or Priestess, she unleashes Easter Failnaught, a noble phantasm that honors the gods through festivity. In general, Baobhan Sith is glad to have a new purpose, no longer driven to madness out of fear. She, Morgan, and the other Tamlin have been rescued, and naturally, she's delighted to be a guardian of the proper human history she admires. Thanks for watching. This channel relies on support from viewers like you.
Please help us out by dropping a like and comment. Subscribe for more videos, and be sure to enable notifications. Or hit up our Discord so you never miss out on a new upload.
Most importantly, if you can spare it, please sign up as a channel member, either through YouTube, Patreon, or Subscribestar. You can find links in the description. We've got perks like exclusive content or early access.
Until next time,
Celebrate your fandom. I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters: Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Otaku Mom, Freebrick, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Lunar Works, Link Pendrago, Observer Bellis, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Crow Calum, Saul Soto, Tristan Riggin, Winter's Edge, Sneer Cachette, Sunbro Torian, Dionysus, Caitlin P, Sogai CH, Sith Lord 906, Vladimirovna, The Taz 96, Kengo X77, and Alistair Bernadotte. Thank you all so much.